Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Okay, so everybody can see the slides?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So today we will start with the elimination reactions. Okay, so first to define eliminations, what are the possibilities in elimination reactions? Okay, it appears that there are mainly two types of elimination. One is 1-1 elimination and another is 1-2 elimination. Okay, so here today we will discuss both of them. Actually 1-2 eliminations are a bit more general, more popular than 1-1 elimination, but we'll give the example of both. Okay. Before going into the detail, I just want to ask you: did you studied this elimination in your first year classes? Was it there in the first year?
Yes, sir, it was there.
Which eliminations were taught in the first year?
Sir, mainly E1, E2, and a little bit of E1, CB, depending upon who is teaching us.
Okay. Okay, then actually it is also there in this syllabus, so I'll cover actually all of them. Okay. Okay, so then we'll start with first 1-2 elimination. So as you have already learned, it can go via E1, E1CB or E2. Mainly you will see E2 as the major mechanism of elimination. After that you'll find E1, and E1CB is a bit rare. Okay. But let me first give you some example of normal elimination reactions. What do I mean by 1-2 elimination? So 1-2 eliminations are basically where your leaving group is attached, that carbon is called alpha carbon. And then the carbon next to is it called beta carbon. So these are actually called alpha beta elimination, or more regularly or more generally it is called beta elimination. So there is one hydrogen will be released from here and the leaving group bromine will release from here. So you basically get this alkene. So these are called alpha beta elimination or beta elimination or 1-2 elimination. Okay. So so these kind of examples are often observed when you have this base-induced elimination of hydrogen halide from alkyl halides. This is one such example. Second example could be your acid-catalyzed dehydration of alcohols. In this case also you have, this is your alpha carbon, this is your beta carbon. If you have acid source, it forms OH2, and then you have like a water plus and H plus elimination. So H3O elimination is there. So you get this alkene again. Another example which we will study in detail today, that is the Hofmann degradation of quaternary alkyl ammonium hydroxides. So in this case also it can form like intramolecularly, which minus can pick up one of this hydrogen and NME3 will be released. So again you get this alkene. So all these are basically examples of 1-2 elimination reactions. Then what is the mechanism? How does this happen? How does this elimination take place? Okay. So 1-2 elimination can take place by three different mechanisms, as you have already learned, based on the timing of CH bond breaking and CY bond breaking. So for example, the one that we showed already. So this is your beta carbon, it has a hydrogen, and this is your alpha carbon, it has the leaving group. You can imagine there are total three possibilities. One possibility where your CH bond breaking and CY bond breaking are simultaneous, are together. Okay, so these two are breaking together. If these are happening together, then this process is called concerted process. I mean the one-step process. So in one step, both the bonds are breaking. So this is kind of the transition state where it is shown in the dotted bond that this base takes up this proton and this Y minus, which is a good leaving group, it leaves to give you this alkene. So ultimately you get this alkene. So these are basically called, this is a one-step process passing through single transition state. This mechanism is known as E2 mechanism or elimination bimolecular. How is it there? Because this is one step. So this step is your redetermining step. And in your redetermining step, you have two species. One is your substrate, another is your base. So in the rate equation, both of them will appear, and thus you get the product. So that is why it is elimination bimolecular. We'll study in detail, but just remember this one for now. So first is then we have E2 elimination, where both the bonds are breaking simultaneously. Then we talk about another possibility, which is where CY bond broken before CH bond. So again, you have the same substrate. Here the CY bond is broken fast. If it broken fast, you get a cationic intermediate like that. And then the base will take up this proton to give this alkene. So the product is same, but the mechanism is different. Here the Y minus leaves first, followed by H. This pathway, this is a two-step pathway via a carbocation intermediate. Actually, in this case, you will see that the first step becomes the redetermining step, and that is why here you have only one molecule involved. That is why it is known as E1 mechanism or elimination unimolecular. We'll see all these things in detail. And then the third mechanism is where you have CH bond, which is broken before CY bond. So the base would take up this proton first to form a negative charge here. So it goes through via a carb anion like intermediate. Then this negative charge comes and Y leaves away so that you get the olefin. In this process, it can be seen that this next step, this K2 step, is basically the the redetermining step. So it is also kind of bimolecular. The rate equation will appear as a second order. Okay. This is also a two-step pathway via carbanion intermediate. This is why it is known as E1CB, elimination via conjugate base or elimination from conjugate base. Okay, that is how it is E1 mechanism. In practice, E2 is mostly observed and E1CB is rare. So this kind of mechanism are very much rarely seen. Okay, we'll see also some of the examples. Okay, so now let's talk about this E1 elimination mechanism. So in this case, we take this the same substrate, and then first, as we said in E1 elimination, the Y would leave as Y minus, and it generates carbocation intermediate. Okay. Then in the second step, this the base would take up this proton, and then you get this olefin. Okay. So in this case, the criteria, the formation of this carbocation happens in the slow and rate determining step. So that means your K2 is much faster than your K minus 1. What did I say? So first you take this substrate, the Y would leave first to form this carbocationic intermediate, and then in the second step, this base would take up this proton and you will get this olefin. Okay, and these are your side other products. In this case, the formation of this cation happens to be in the rate determining step. That means this is your fast step, this is your slow step. Okay? That means K2 is greater than K minus 1. Okay. So then in this case, what would be the rate? The rate is rate constant into the concentration of your substrate. So this is a first order equation. Okay. Now this this is of course distinct from E2 mechanism. If you see that kinetically, E1 could be identical to that of E2 when the solvent acts as the base. If you take solvent, the sulfolysis reaction, the E1 mechanism and E2, the rate equation could come as same. For example, let's look at this equation. So first, maybe there was a leaving group here, like a bromine, it has left. So you get the carbocation intermediate like this one. Okay. Now this one has two possibilities. One, the solvent which can act as the base, it leads to the E1 mechanism to form this kind of olefin. So this is your beta carbon. One of the hydrogen goes from here and you get a double bond here. The second possibility is the ethanol, which can also act as the nucleophile. So this ethanol can attack here as an SN1 mechanism. We will not discuss about this one now, but we will mainly focus on this part. Okay, so now if we write the rate equation, then this is again your, of course, the formation of this positive charge is the determining step, but one can write the rate equation as rate constant, concentration of your starting material, and ethanol. Because ethanol is present in a very large excess, the concentration of ethanol term will remain constant. That is why the rate equation will come same for both E1 as well as for E2, because your ethanol concentration will remain constant. So you, from the rate equation, you cannot know whether this reaction is E1 or E2. Correct? Did you understand? What did I say? Let's say you have this substrate. From this substrate, you generate a carbocation. Now your ethanol can take up the beta proton to form this olefin. Now, if you write the rate equation for this reaction as rate equal to K into concentration of your substrate and concentration of your ethanol, this rate equation would say that this reaction could go either by E1 or by E2, because your concentration of ethanol remains constant because it is present in a huge amount, so it does not practically change. That equation would not tell you whether this reaction is going via E1 or E2. Then how do you know, how do you decide, how do you claim that this is an E1 mechanism and not an E2 mechanism? Okay, so these two can be distinguished if we add the conjugate base like OH minus. So in ethanol, if we add OH minus, now ethanol is a very weak base. It cannot take this proton very efficiently. But if we add OH minus, this OH minus can pick up this proton very efficiently. That means if this reaction goes via E2 pathway, your reaction rate would increase. Yes or no? Correct? If OH minus, if you add, if the reaction rate increases, that means your this carbocation formation is not in the redetermining step. That means this step is your redetermining step. That means it is a one-step pathway, E2 pathway. Correct? So if the rate increases with OH minus, it will say that this reaction is not a E1 pathway, but it is an E2 mechanism. But in this case, the rate actually did not change for E1 mechanism. So in this case, actually the rate does not change, which indicates that this is an E1 mechanism. Clear?
Sir, can you explain again the argument for E1, like how it would occur?
Yeah. So if this mechanism happened via E1 mechanism, then your formation of this carbocation is in the redetermining state. So strength of your base does not matter. I mean, it should not change the rate, isn't it? If the formation of this carbocation is in the redetermining state, changing the base would not matter for your reaction because it is the first step in this pathway. So K2 is very fast, so it does not determine your rate of reaction, but what determines is the carbocation generation. So if you change the base, it doesn't matter, the rate does not change. But if this reaction happens via E2 pathway, this one, then here this base, if you increase the strength of base, it takes up this proton and your reaction rate increases. That is why we are saying that if you add now OAT minus with this reaction, if the rate increases, then it goes via E2 pathway. If the rate does not change, then it is going via E1 pathway. Clear?
Oh, yes, sir.
Okay, so that is about E1. So remember about this experimental evidence. How do you prove? So for a mechanism, generally this is, so for an unknown reaction, what is your experimental proof? You would add maybe the basicity, or you will change or you will vary the basicity of the the base that is added, and you will see that the reaction rate increasing or decreasing. That is one of the experimental evidence to prove E1 compared to E2. Okay, we'll have all the experimental evidence for three mechanisms. Now let's see E1CB elimination mechanism. So in this case, what we said, that again the mechanism looks similar, but in this case your H bond broken first. Okay, so this happens in the first step, and the CY bond breaks in the redetermining step. So in this case, your K2 becomes the redetermining step. Okay, so your K2, K1 must be greater than your K2. Okay, so in this case, formation of carbanion intermediate is fast and reversible, while subsequent loss of the leaving group is slow and rate limiting. So this one is your redetermining step. This one is your first step, because proton is the base is taking the proton very fast to form this negative charge. Then this negative charge comes, CY bond breaks. Okay, so in this case, the rate becomes rate constant into the substrate and concentration of B. How does this appear? So generally, for a second two-step reaction, you can calculate the rate constant, the rate in this way. The rate is equal to K1 and K2, both are there, concentration of substrate into concentration of base, and divided by concentration of K minus 1, the negative, the reverse reaction, K minus 1, concentration of conjugate base, that is this one, plus K2. Now, applying the steady state principle of a reaction, you would assume that whatever comes here, these two rates are fixed, so the concentration of this is also kind of in a steady state in a two-step reaction. So if it is steady state, this concentration will remain fixed. So this also becomes a constant. So then all of them are basically a constant, and you can include into this K1 and K2. So this K becomes K observation into substrate and base. So that is what appears in the rate equation. Okay. So did you understand this mechanism? One more time, I'll tell you. So you have this, first the base takes up this proton, this CH bond broken first to form this negative charge. This is happening in the first and reversible step. This negative charge comes here, then the leaving group leaves. This happens in the redetermining step. So in this case, your K minus 1 becomes greater than K2. This is your rate equation. Then E1CB is kinetically indistinguishable from that of E2 pathway, sometimes from the rate equation. But it can be distinguished by exchange of isotope level between the unchanged substrate and solvent that can arise during fast reversible carbanion formation, which cannot happen in the E2 pathway. What is it saying? It is saying that in this case, the experimental evidence for E1CB pathway comes from isotope leveling experiment. Okay. What does it mean? It means that this is a fast and reversible step. Now, you are using a base and you are using also a solvent. In the solvent, if there is a, let's say, deuterium, then this negative charge would again catch up this proton or would catch up the deuterium, so that this H bond would be replaced with CD bond. Is it clear or not? What I'm saying is you focus on this part. Okay. So in this part, this molecule, the base takes up this proton to form this carbanion. But this is also reversible, K minus 1 greater than K2. So this would again go back into the starting material. So this negative charge will take up this proton to come back to this starting material. Now, instead of using the same, if you add the deuterium, okay, the isotope, then this negative charge will also take the isotope like the deuterium if I put. So then this CH bond would be replaced with a CD bond. You will see a deuterium here. So if you stop or if you quench the reaction after some time, then if you find there is a deuterium or the isotope incorporation in this molecule, that means this reaction is going via E1CB pathway. But if this reaction goes via E2 pathway, you will not see a deuterium incorporation because E2 pathway is a one-step pathway. There you do not have this step. It just goes to this product via one-step pathway where CH bond and CY bond broken simultaneously. So there is no scope of going back. But if you get a deuterium incorporation, that means this reaction is going back. Okay, that means this is a going via E1CB pathway. Clear? Okay. Now, what are the criteria that allow this E1CB pathway? As I said, E1CB is rarely observed and you will not much example on it. Only few examples are available. Okay. So as you can understand from the mechanism, to fulfill the mechanism, first you have to have the acidity of this proton which is very high. Only then the base can take up this proton first to form this negative charge. So first criteria is your hydrogen, the acidity of this beta hydrogen has to be very high. Second is this negative charge which forms here has to be stabilized. So you need some stabilizing agent either here or here. And third is the leaving group ability should be very poor. Only then this intermediate could form. If it leaves very quickly, then this intermediate will not form. Okay. So what is the first criteria? Electronegative halogen atom on beta carbon. So here X2, X could be electronegative halogen atom on beta carbon here to make beta hydrogen more acidic. So if you put electronegative halogen atom here, then this hydrogen will become more acidic in nature. Second is stabilization of the carbanion by electron withdrawal by halogen atom. So this halogen atom again stabilize this carbanion. This is the second criteria. First is acidity of proton. Second is stabilization of this negative charge. And third is poor leaving group, in this case fluorine. So if these three criteria are fulfilled, then this mechanism could follow. Okay, there is one example. Let's say you take this kind of compound PHCH2CH2Br. In this case, phenyl could take up this has a minus R effect also, could stabilize the carbanion that you can generate here, O negative, I mean C negative here. And then it could eliminate the bromine to form this styrene, PHCH double bond CH2. But after this deuterium experiment, the one that I mentioned here, that you would do the isotope level experiment, isotope exchange experiment, it has been observed that if this reaction is done in this is EtOH or OH minus, and then you take the deuterium level, that is EtOD, you will see that deuterium leveling here is not present. So deuterium leveling does not come. So this reaction, it does not go via E1CB pathway. Okay. Then what are the mechanism? What are the example? So benzene formation is one example which goes via E1CB pathway. So if you have either a proton or deuterium, NH2 minus can take up this deuterium or proton for exchange, but the benzene generally does not happen because, as we said, fluorine is a very poor leaving group. But this reaction generally happens with butyl lithium. If you add butyl lithium, this will take a proton from here to generate a carbanion like this, and then the fluorine will leave in the second step, in the slowest step, to generate this benzene. This follows your E1CB pathway. Usually people also take this kind of substrate where you have first your transmetallation, where this lithium comes here, butyl bromide forms, and it forms a negative charge here, followed by this comes and fluorine leaves. Okay, like that. Another example comes which is base induced elimination of hydrogen cyanide from cyanohydrin. If you take cyanohydrin and add some base, the base would take this proton first to form this O negative. This O negative is stabilized because oxygen is electronegative atom element. In the next step, this O negative comes here and CN leaves, so that you get this carbonyl compound and the cyanide minus. Basically total you get the HCN. So this reaction also follows this kind of E1CB pathway. Okay, these are one of the few examples that are available for E1CB mechanism. Okay. Okay, next come to E2 elimination mechanism. We have already discussed about it. E2 elimination happens in a single step. Okay, so you have this alpha carbon, beta carbon, the base takes up this proton, this bond comes here, and then the leaving group leaves. So here you see H bond and you see Br bond broken simultaneously. Okay, CY bond and CH bond is broken simultaneously. So this is your transition state, which gives this olefin and then this BH plus and Br minus. Okay, so in this case, then you have only possibility that this is your rate determining step, and then the rate becomes your K into concentration of your substrate and the base. In this case, what is the experimental evidence? The experimental evidence is your CH bond is being broken in the rate determining step. That means if you replace this proton with a deuterium element with an isotope, then you will get primary kinetic isotope effect. So in E2 elimination, if it shows primary kinetic isotope effect, then it means that this reaction is going via E2 pathway. Okay, so you would remember all the experimental evidence for all the three mechanisms. How do you prove? Okay, it's clear, I hope. So it says involvement of CH bond fission is happening in the rate determining step. This is the first step, which can be observed through primary kinetic isotope effect when hydrogen is replaced with deuterium on the beta carbon. So if you replace this hydrogen with deuterium, then you can see the primary kinetic isotope effect. Okay, now there are several factors also affecting E2 elimination. How do you increase the E2 elimination rate? So factors affecting E2 elimination. Now E2 rate can increase with increasing strength of base. You can easily understand that base is coming in this rate equation. If the base strength increases, it can pick up this hydrogen fast. So your rate, overall rate would increase. So if the basic strength increases, the E2 elimination rate will also increase. Second point is, if you change the solvent from polar protic to polar aprotic, then what will happen? In polar aprotic solvent, the base strength will increase because the hydration will be decreased. The base will not be hydrated anymore. So its basic strength will be high. So then your E2 elimination rate will increase. And third is leaving group ability improves E2 rate. Again, it's the same. Your leaving group is also involved in the rate determining step. So if the leaving group ability increases, then also your rate will increase. So these are the main three factors which affects or improves the rate of your E2 elimination mechanism. Okay, so now it comes to this orientation of E2 elimination. So there are basically two mechanisms that can be proposed. I'm not sure whether this has been taught in your first year. One is your Hoffman elimination, another is your Sedgwick elimination. Okay. So basically both of them are two different scientists. They studied this elimination pathway using two different compounds where your leaving group is different, and both of them came up with two different mechanisms. Okay, two different postulates. Let's see what they have to say based on the leaving group. Okay, so we take this kind of substrate where you have possibility of leaving two different proton. So you have the alpha carbon here where your leaving group is attached. You have one beta carbon which is less substituted, which is more substituted with hydrogen and less substituted with other carbons. So this is your beta hydrogen, and then this is your one of the proton that could be abstracted. This is one beta carbon, and this is your second beta carbon which is more substituted. So now if you use a base, which one will be picked up? It could pick up this proton. If this proton is picked up, you get more substituted olefin, which is called Sedgwick product, because Sedgwick proposed this kind of mechanism. And if this one carbon, this one is abstracted, then you get less substituted product, or this is called Hoffman product. Okay. So then when this will form and when this will form, when the Hoffman product will form and when the Sedgwick product will form. Let's see. What Hoffman said is the alkene will predominate which has least as alkyl substituents. Hoffman says that the product, this product will form which has least alkyl substituent on the double bond carbon. When will that form? This will form when your Y minus, which is very strong electron withdrawing group. Okay, this Y could have two possibilities. Remember, this Y could have two possibilities. One, it could be highly electron withdrawing group, or it could be a very good leaving group. So in Hoffman case, it is a very high electron withdrawing group. When it is a very high electron withdrawing group, the acidity of this proton is much higher than this proton, because here you have a plus I effect. So that is why this proton goes. So when Y is high electron withdrawing group, this proton acidity will be very high, and that is why you get an olefin which is less substituted. Is it clear? It is also mentioned here. Here Y is NMe3 plus, which is a very strong electron withdrawing group, thus increases the acidity of the beta hydrogen atom. That is why here C beta hydrogen bond is broken slightly earlier than CY bond. So here the reaction passes through carbonyl-like transition state. Okay. So I'll explain this again if some of you could not follow. So what we are saying, that here we are saying orientation of E2 elimination, Hoffman versus Sedgwick. Okay, these are the two possible ways of elimination. In Hoffman pathway, we are saying that there are two possibilities. If there are two possibilities, if this proton goes away, then you get a terminal alkyne which is less substituted, which is called the Hofmann product. If this proton goes away, you get the more substituted, which is called the Serge product. Now Hofmann says that the alkyl will form which has least alkyl substituent, means this one. Why this will happen? Because when you have Y, which is highly electron withdrawing in nature, in that way, this acidity of this proton will be more compared to this. So that is why this proton will be left first. To form a carbanion-like pathway, this carbanion will come and your Y will leave. Now let's see what happened to the Serge product. Now Serge says that alkene will form which has most alkyl substituent. This one, okay? I mean this one. So why this will form? Here Y equal to bromine, which is a very good leaving group. When it is a good leaving group, here CY bond is broken slightly earlier than CH bond. Thus, here the reaction passes through alkene-like transition state. So, if Y is a very good leaving group, this will go so that this here will be an alkene-like transition state, then this CH bond will be broken. So, these are the two transition states for Hofmann and Serge. So, in Hofmann case, because the acidity of this proton is high, the OH minus would catch this proton to form this del negative charge. So you have a carb anion-like transition state, followed by this will be left. But in Serge case, this bond will be broken first, okay? So that you have an alkene-like transition state, followed by this base will take up this proton. Okay, so in Hofmann case, you have carb anion-like transition state, and in Serge case, you have alkene-like transition state. Is it clear or not? Everybody, it is clear, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now there are several factors of or the ratio of product formation between Hofmann versus Serge. First is effect of size of base. Depending on the effect of size, your Hofmann product or your Serge product could dominate. What happens if the size of the base are increased? In this case, your Hofmann by Serge product ratio actually increases because see, if the size of base increases, this base would face less steric crowding with these two protons. This can be visible if you draw a Newman projection formula or a Sohor's projection formula. You can easily see that this OIT minus will face less steric crowding to pick up this proton because there are only two protons. But if it is a Serge product, if this base is very bulky, it will have little bit difficulty to pick up this proton if there are methyl group present here or maybe other substituent. So if it is less substituted, even if the base is bulky, it can pick up this proton very fast. So if the size of your base increases, then your Hofmann product will increase because the transition state could become stabilized. Clear? Correct? That is what we are saying here. Contribution of Hofmann product increases with increasing size of base when leaving group remains constant. Here the stability of the Serge versus Serge transition state is significantly decreased because of the steric with increasing size of the base because of the steric interaction. Thus, Hofmann versus Hofmann by Serge product ratio increases with increasing size of base. Clear? Second is effect of size of leaving group. Again, the argument is same because if the leaving group size is more, then your if the leaving group size is bigger, in that case also your Hofmann will product ratio will increase. But in SETSEF case, it will again, the transition state will become little bit unstable because of the steric interaction with this substituent and the leaving group. So in this case also, similarly, here the contribution of SETSEF product decreases with increasing size of leaving group when the base remains constant. Therefore, here the contribution of Hofmann product increases and thus Hofmann by SETSEF product ratio increases with increasing size of the leaving group. Clear? And then following this series, iodine to bromine to chlorine to fluorine. In this case, what happens is when we are going from left hand side to right hand side, the electronegativity actually increases. With increasing electronegativity, if the electronegativity increases, then this acidity of this proton increases because it is pulling up more electron. With increasing acidity of this proton, then your Hofmann will increase. That is what happens here. So from left hand side to right hand side, the electronegativity of the halogen atom increases. Therefore, your Hofmann elimination reaction will be more favorable from left hand side to right hand side. Thus, Hofmann by SETSEF product ratio increases from left hand side to right hand side. Okay. These factors are available in the book of Peter Sykes. You will, today's class is mostly available in the Peter Sykes books. Okay. Then we look at when Y is equal to bromine, SME2 and NME3. In this case, also the electron withdrawing ability of the leaving group increases from left hand side to right hand side. Okay. As the electron withdrawing ability increases, again the acidity of the proton increases. So from left to right hand side, your Hofmann product ratio will increase. And that is why your Hofmann by SETSEF product ratio will also increase from left hand side to right hand side. Okay. And the last point is when we have this series ETO minus, Me3CO minus, Me2C ETO minus, and ET3CO minus, you can clearly see that the size of the base is actually increasing. So as we said, with increasing size of base, your SETSEF product, SETSEF transition state will become unstable. So again, with increasing size of base, your Hofmann transition state will become more stable. So your Hofmann product will increase. So here the contribution of Hofmann product increases from left hand side to right hand side, as the size of base increases from left hand side to right hand side. So the contribution of Hofmann by SETSEF product ratio increases from left hand side to right hand side. Okay. So what are the points? Effect of size increases Hofmann. Effect of size of leaving group, again favorable for Hofmann. All of them are actually favorable for Hofmann. Increasing electronegativity favors the Hofmann. Increasing electron withdrawing ability favors the Hofmann. Size of the base favors the Hofmann. Okay. Okay. So now let's look into a little bit more detail on their stereochemistry. Actually, this elimination is often associated with stereochemistry. Okay. So in this case, what we observe is they are kind of stereoselective. There are two possibilities actually that could arise for acyclic molecules. What are the two possibilities? The elimination could take place preferably from anti-periplanar orientation like this or syn-periplanar orientation like this. So what we are saying, the elimination is possible to happen either from anti-periplanar orientation or from syn-periplanar orientation. So both are actually possible. Okay, which one is favorable will come later, but both are possible. Okay, what is anti-periplanar? Anti-periplanar is when your CH is one side, CY is on other side. And periplanar means they have to be in the same plane. H, C, C, Y. This four has to be in the same plane. Why? Because we are generating a double bond. That means we have two p orbital involved here. If these are not in the same plane, these two p orbital cannot overlap, and that is why the bond cannot form. That is why they have to be planar in nature. And this could be either anti-periplanar or syn-periplanar. So in this case, you see the proton, the hydrogen, and the leaving group are in the same, is also in the plane, but in the same side. So it is syn-periplanar. Okay. So these two conformation are favorable for E2 elimination, but because in this case the favorable overlap could take place. But what has been observed that for E2 elimination, the anti-periplanar elimination from the anti-periplanar orientation is more favorable than syn-periplanar. Okay. What are the reasons? There are two reasons for this. First is, if this transition, the transition state generating from anti-periplanar orientation is more stable than syn. Here, these two and these two are in the eclipsed conformation, but here these four are in the staggered conformation, so they will face a lot of steric interaction. So your anti-periplanar is more favorable than your syn-periplanar. Okay, this is your first reason. The second reason is the base is coming from this side, and in this case, let's say the base is coming from this side and the leaving group is going this side. So the base, which is also electron rich in nature, the leaving group, which will also have Y minus, both are in the same side, which will again have steric interaction. Okay, I mean electrostatic interactions. But if it comes from the other side, from here, then this interaction can be minimized. It is same as your SN2 reaction, like it comes from the other side, so some sort of a backside attack, which is preferable. The same argument also holds here. So that is why your anti-periplanar elimination from this anti-periplanar orientation is more favorable. Okay. So what are the 2 points? First point is in this eclipsed form, you have less steric interaction between these two, and second is the base and the leaving group are happening in the opposite side. If it happens in the same side, there will be an electrostatic interaction between these two. Okay. Now, I must also mention that syn elimination from the syn periplanar orientation also happens. So there are total 3 or 4 examples I will also give towards the end of today's class. Okay, those are called pyrolytic syn elimination. Those falls in this category. But for acyclic molecule, something like this, the elimination is more favorable from antiperiplanar orientation. For example, when if you take this kind of compounds, and if you have this leaving group as bromine, tosylate, or NMe3 plus, in this case, the stereoselectivity is 100% anti. Okay, it is 100% anti-periplanar in nature. So in this case, there could be two isomer possible. One is trio isomer, where these two methyl will be on the same side. That is what is the trio isomer. I hope you know these isomeric nomenclatures. And erythro isomer, these two methyl will be in the opposite side. In trio isomer, the more prior groups will be on the same side. In erythro, the priority groups will be on the opposite side. Okay. So if it is trio isomer, then your hydrogen and your Y would be in the anti-periplanar, and then you will get an alkene where these two methyl will be on the same side. So you get cis alkene. And if it is your erythro isomer, two methyl will be on the opposite side, and then you get a trans alkene. It has been observed that when Y is equal to this leaving groups, then these eliminations are 100% stereoselective. Means trio isomer will give you cis alkene, erythro isomer will give you trans alkene. Okay. So it is 100% stereo selective. Okay, do you need a break?
Yes, sir.
Okay, you can take 5 to 6 minutes of break. We'll start something like at 9:08. Okay, now it is 9:02.